everybody always looked up to you as like the guy there.
And every kid that went to Lake Central was my kid. You know, when I was there, as long as I was there, you know, those are my kids. Dyer Little League is like, especially then, was the shit. Told them some of the things that kids tell me nowadays. I'm like, ugh.
You were a former sniper observer. Take me through how you dealt with the high pressure situations in that time.
There was a murder at the Edible Arrangements in Cherville on 30, right?
I remember seeing
So our
that.
team got deployed for that because we believed the suspect was in his house.
It was huge in the news. Like everybody knew about it. It was very local, so it was obviously a difficult situation for the community to get over.
I'm down in the front and I rolled my right ankle. I literally broke my ankle in half. Wouldn't be the guy to put the cuffs on.
I mean, I would love to start, you know, even having more police officers and first responders on.
Right on.
Your time as a sergeant in the Marines, how have those experiences influenced your approach to leadership and teamwork?
So, I mean, I always pride myself on, you know, being in the Marine Corps.
Absolutely.
I just, you know, growing up, you know, as a ward of the state, you know, getting adopted at 10 years old and, you know, struggling through my childhood. And then there was, even though I grew up in Griffith and, you know, I played football for Coach Radke and, you know, and I was wrestling and track and, you know, baseball and all this stuff. And, you know, I mean, I loved being, it was always sport oriented, but I never really felt like I was really part of like something, you know, until I joined the Marine Corps. And then it was like, I was instantly hooked, man. And I've been in love with the Marine Corps ever since. I mean, honestly, if I didn't want to be a police officer as bad as I did since I was, you know, a little kid, then, you know, I probably would have stayed in the Marine Corps. And so, you know, some of those things that, you know, they teach you everything. I mean, literally, I mean, from the way that we lace our boots, you know, every day to, you know, making your bed in the morning to how you wear your uniform and how you present yourself in public and how you talk to people and, you know, your demeanor and, you know, how you carry yourself as a man, you know, as a Marine. And really, you know, I mean, we have females and Marines in the Marine Corps too. So even for females and, you know, how you carry yourself and, you know, it's a way of life. And yeah, I've always been proud of that fact. And, you know, just over a couple of years ago, you know, I've been out of active duty since 2000, September of 2000. And so it's been a little bit. And so, but the guys that I served with, we finally had a reunion, our first reunion like 2 years ago. And it was probably one of the most therapeutic things that I've done since I've been an adult, honestly, since I left the Marine Corps. All of us came together, we're from all different walks of life. And, you know, the things that we do in the Marine Corps, we did in the Marine Corps was because, you know, it was me and you like in a hole somewhere. We're out doing whatever. And, you know, like I couldn't stop because you weren't stopping, you know?
Right.
And if I was stopping, then my guy was like, let's go, keep moving your ass. Let's keep, we gotta do it, you know?
Right.
And so the camaraderie is unbelievable, you know? I mean, it's probably that's probably the most meaningful that I've had in, you know, and especially in my career time as an adult. I mean, you know, the support and all that. I mean, I just felt like, you know, those literally, I know it sounds kind of like corny, but when I say like, hey, those are my brothers, like those guys are my brothers, man. Like,
Absolutely.
And, you know, when we just saw each other again a couple of years ago, I mean, it was like we hadn't even left each other. It was like we might have been gone for like a long weekend or something. Now we're all back to working again and, you know, being around each other. We never skipped a beat. It was like we just saw each other a couple of days ago. And it was insane. Matter of fact, it was so good for us. I think there was about 40 Marines that showed up down in Tennessee. And that's where we all met that time. Well, actually, ironically, in April, one of our Marines is retiring. And we're actually doing another reunion in North Carolina at Camp Lejeune. That's where we were based at. And a bunch of us are going out there to see him retire. And we're going to spend the weekend together and just being like the guys again. And, you know, getting a little bit crazy. But, you know, we're all older now, so, you know, not too crazy. But I can't wait. Like, I cannot wait. I was telling my wife yesterday, I'm like, I cannot wait to be around these guys because they're just like, you know, it's happiness, it's motivation, it's just so infectious, you know, like, oh, I just can't wait. I wish I was around them all of them more often, really, you know.
Yeah.
But we came from all different walks of life, man. I mean, so, you know, that's something else in the Marine Corps. Doesn't matter, like, you know, where your past was. Doesn't matter, you know, how much money you had or didn't have. Didn't matter your education. Didn't matter, what color you were. I mean, we're all Marines. In boot camp, they shit on all of us together the same way, so it doesn't matter. And you kind of grow up that way. And I mean, honestly, if the rest of the world kind of follow suit in the military, at least in the Marine Corps, I think it would be we'd all be getting a lot better.
I agree.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, people say that, well, there's still racism or there's still this and that in the Marine Corps, blah, 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 but not like it is out in the civilian world. I'll tell you that right now. I never saw it. Some of my best friends in the Marine Corps, I mean, Asian, Black, Hispanic, it don't matter. Like,
right.
we're all brothers, man. And it's something I just pride myself on. And the guys that I've served with, we've always prided ourselves on. Like, if I'm going to bust your balls, I'm going to bust this guy's balls just as equal. It don't matter, Right.
We're all the same. We're all human.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot more laid back. I mean, but yeah, I mean, so as a leader, I mean, honestly, like rank, I never looked at rank as a police department. Like I never had to have rank, and I was kind of touted that, a little bit, like when it came to getting promoted, like I didn't necessarily want to get promoted sometimes because depending on your job as a police officer, once you get promoted, they need you in certain positions in the police department. And in the Marine Corps, it's the same way, as a young Marine getting promoted, now you're putting on to lead Marines, whether it's combat time or peacetime or training ops. It don't matter. You're there to take care of the younger Marines. And that's something that I think that's really neat is they instill in you right from the get-go is as you start moving up in the ranks, your job is to take care of the guys behind you now, the guy lower than you. Now, whether it's time of service or, seniority or, ranking, you just always take care of your other Marines. And so in the Marine Corps, we were always taught too is hey, the youngest Marines eat first, and the guys that have rank, your guys, you take care of your guys. So, hey, my guys, they're going to eat first. They're going to get this first. They're going to get everything first. And I'm the last one to step up and get what I need to get done.
That's really
and that's something that's really been kind of instilled in me. It is kind of how I live, my career, even up until this point, in the Marine Corps and as a police officer and everything I've done, really, I mean, even with my family, my friends, I mean, I'm a pretty giving guy, a caring guy, I mean, so, yeah.
My dad went to basic training, and he said that he thinks everybody should do basic training.
Oh,
and it kind of it just made me remind me of like you said, it instills in, respect and, things that just carry over to normal life. And I don't want to do it, but I get what he's saying too of, I feel like now society's kind of getting away from that and that they're all on their phones and social media is like a huge issue now too. But how would you say you deal with like some of that emotional and like hard time stresses during, your time in the Marines?
Honestly, physically, they build you up. It doesn't matter, like, you just take a physical fitness test when you go in, and you got to be a certain level, right? Otherwise, they won't let you in. But the level that you're asking for a younger person, it's not like anything outrageous. If you put a little effort, it's all about effort. It's how much effort. If you really want to do it, you're going to give an effort. So you give that effort, you make it, your physical fitness past that part of it, and you get in. And then they pretty much start you all at ground level. They start you at the exact same level. It doesn't matter if you're a marathon runner in track in high school and you won state and national championship. It don't matter. Everybody starts right at the exact same thing, and you all build up together. And so that's, again, going back to, you're helping these other guys, or other guys or gals that are, they're athletically, they may not be at your level, but now it's your job as a teammate, right, to help them and get to that level. And everybody does the same exact things. You kind of go together, you grow together. And it's huge. So, I mean, honestly, like physically, the Marine Corps wasn't like, at least for me, it really wasn't, because I was I was always in, athletics. So it wasn't really tough. Mentally, it's draining. I mean, but that's the purpose of boot camp. That's the first time I was ever away from Indiana. It was the first time I ever flown on a plane. First time I was really by myself, because at least I'd always had my little brother who's 3 years younger than me. We'd always been together, no matter since the day he was born. We'd never really parted ways. That was the first time. And so me flying to California,
wow,
it was emotionally, I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I was pretty tough mentally, at that point. I was a pretty street smart guy. I mean, I'm like, yeah. And I honestly, I was kind of roll with the punches anyways. Like I just kind of took it and went along with whatever happened, you know? So in boot camp, mentally it was tough at times because it didn't matter how hard you worked to get something right, you're still wrong. And you had to accept it. It didn't matter if whether you knew you were right or wrong, like you said, accept it. Like I'm wrong right now. It is what it is. And now I have to deal with the pain, the physical pain I'm about to endure because, you know, not because they beat you, but because they motivate you by working out, you know, like they IT you, they call it, something training, intensive training or something like that, where they, you know, you do 1,000 push-ups and sit-ups and they just keep, you know, they wear you out. But again, even that is a mental thing because your body can be pushed so much farther than you could ever imagine. And I learned that when I was in the Marine Corps. So it was just very exhausting, but they do that purposely to build you up. And when you are exhausted and you're hungry and you're tired and you can't move on, and even if you're injured, you can still continue to move on. And they purposely do that, obviously, for combat purposes and, you know, real world operations. You know, they just instill in you this never quit. You never quit until your body just stops, like, you know, on its own. Like it just won't physically just move anymore, you know. But like I was saying earlier, like, you know, we were machines. I felt like a machine back then. Like I couldn't be stopped. You know, and that part of that, you know, you get a little bit cocky about it too. But it's kind of like cockiness, but it's also like confidence, you know. It's confidence. Honestly, I was more confident then than I probably ever was in my life. I mean, I felt like...
I feel like you kind of have to when you're dealing with that, you know, those type of situations, just be overly confident, you know, and I mean, cocky and confidence, there's obviously a difference, but I mean, when you're dealing with, you know, high level situations like that, I think, you know, just relying on your team, like you said, is just everything in there.
It was, you know, the team, being a team player, I mean, being part of the overall mission, the overall like cause, you know, the group, you know, the platoon or the squad level and all this, you know, different levels. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, you do everything for what's going on. You do it. It's not for you. You do it because your buddies there. You're doing it because you believe in, you know, the Marine Corps and you believe in our mission and our objectives, and that's why you do it. You know, and don't get me wrong. There's some guys that didn't like it. There's some guys that just didn't enjoy it. You know, but you know, they didn't stay in as long as some of us did. You know, and for the most part, honestly, I can't remember it. You know, there's some guys that definitely struggled it from times, but that's what you're there for, man. I mean, unfortunately, you know, when I was in the Marine Corps, I mean, it's already a mental game, and you're already traveling around the world, sometimes not by choice, but you get deployed. And, you know, my adopted dad, you know, I got adopted at 10 years old. So really, I only knew my dad for about, man, I would say probably, when I consider my dad, it was my dad who adopted me. He's the only dad I've ever known. And so I was maybe like 21, 22 when he passed. And I mean, I was an absolute mess. And, you know, I was away in Haiti when I first found out, you know, he had gotten cancer. And, you know, it was nice because the Marine Corps, you know, they shipped me home a little bit earlier than everybody else. I got to come home and be part with the family, and when he had surgery and stuff like that. And, you know, unfortunately it was pancreatic cancer. It was something that's very difficult to beat. And so, but you know what, honestly, like, I don't know if I would have been able to get through that mentally if I was not in the Marine Corps. I mean, it broke my heart that I was away from that family. You know, they were living all this every single day, you know, and I was away at the time, but I was still struggling, man. And I was absolutely a mess. And when, you know, it was about 2 or 3 weeks after we had buried my dad, you know, I was on a plane in Okinawa, Japan for like the next 10 months. And then I got there, and about 2 or 3 weeks after that, on Christmas Eve, we're doing you know, our whole platoon is hiking, and, you know, we're going down a hill, a mountain, and I turn to check out my guys. I'm down in the front, and I roll my right ankle. I literally broke my ankle in half. And so now I'm on crutches for the next so many months, and I was just not in a good place mentally.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't have got through that. I know I wouldn't have if it wasn't for the guys that I served with at the time. I mean, these guys, my roommate was like instrumental. I mean, I sit there and cried with the guy many, many nights, you know, and, you know, several of the guys I served with. And I mean, it was tough, man. But they were my strength. They really were. They were my family when I was away. And I'm very thankful that I was there then. And it all kind of happened then. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But, yeah.
would you say, like, when you first started, when you were 21, 22 in the Marines, was that kind of like the hardest time for you in the Marines, or that situation dealing with, your dad and then, snapping your ankle in half, or you think?
I think that was probably the hardest time I had in the Marine Corps, was, just emotionally for me, because, like I said, when I got adopted, I was just turning 10 years old. And, up until that point, there wasn't very many people in my life who I looked up to. And he was someone who I looked up to like God, right? Like, I'm just like, whoa, like, this guy's the man. My mom too. I'm like, these people are such good people. And only being 10 years old, like, I just automatically knew, like, there's not many people like this in the world. And I better not screw this up. And I told my little brother, I go, dude, don't F this up for us, because I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to the foster home, dude.
Yeah.
And we've joked around that, since then, as adults, but like, but no, I really knew, like, I knew, like, these people are good people. I don't want to mess this up. I want to stay here. And, because we'd bounce around from several foster homes as kids, and, right when you think things are good, and then you get bounced to another one. And I don't know rhymes or reasons for that, but that's just how it was, back then. But don't get me wrong, like, after I was adopted, I struggled because I was so far behind in school. And I actually didn't learn that I was even like ADD or ADHD until I was an adult, on my own. And I finally learned that. And I struggled with that. I knew that as a kid, especially now I see my own son, one of my own sons, and he's exactly the same way I was, But back then we didn't talk about like medicine or therapy. We didn't talk about like, going to a counselor and doing this and that. And so it's just a different time period, right? And so I struggled a lot. My grades were awful. I was grounded all the time, and through like junior high and high school, that was really the only thing I really butted heads with my parents, with my grades. Other than that, I like to think that I was pretty darn good kid. I mean, I caused some, I was a little shit from time to time. Don't get me wrong, but
who isn't?
But for the most part, yeah, I was a pretty good kid, I think. But they got me through that, and I never thought about going to the Marine Corps. But my adopted dad, the one that passed away, he's the one. He was in the Marine Corps. He never even talked about it. Like, I just knew, like, going into my senior year, all my guys, they're all getting ready. They're all signing for like playing baseball or football here and wrestling here, and they're all going away to college. I'm thinking, man, college is like the last thing in my mind. Like, I want nothing to do with that. But I knew my parents were like, listen, either go to school or you go find a full-time job. It's one or the other, because you're not sitting on your ass at home and not doing anything.
Right.
And video games were kind of starting, but nothing like it is now.
It's crazy now.
But there were some kids, I guess there were a couple kids in the neighborhood that were kind of gamers here and there, but we'd rather be outside back then. It just wasn't big yet. And so, but yeah, I was like, well, you know what, maybe I'll just join the military. That'd be kind of neat. And I thought about it, I'm like, well, if I'm going to join, I got to join the best branch of service, at least in my eyes. So I'm like, I'll join the Marines. My mom and dad were like, when I told them, they were shocked. They're like, what? You what? Like, my dad was like, Jerry, you can't do this. Like, this is not a movie. This ain't a movie, dude. This is not something you can go there and come right back because you don't like it. And I was like, but it kind of like, in a way, it kind of motivated me a little bit. Like, what, you don't think I could do this?
Like, trying to prove them wrong a little bit.
Like, screw this. I'm going to do it, Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm very thankful that I did do that,
Yeah. You were a former sniper observer. Mm-hmm. Take me through how you dealt with the high pressure situations in that time, because just looking in at the title of that looks, very intimidating.
It sounds awesome. And it's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's cool training. It's cool real world operations. But honestly, a lot of the work that we do, it's it's slow, methodical. It is painful at times. It's hot. You can't, you got to have pretty darn good self-discipline, and so, as a sniper observer in law enforcement, it's completely different than military. Honestly, the military, so in the Marine Corps, we at least in the Marine Corps, at my time, it was called State Platoon, and that was like our snipers for the infantry, and I was in an infantry unit. And so the snipers were kind of like support for us, and they had like their own specific platoon. We knew those guys, and they were, trust me, we loved having them along on, with us and everything that we did. And I actually I tried the indoc to become a sniper in the Marine Corps. And I don't know, I remember it kicked my ass. It was an ass kicker. I mean, it was physically, it was demanding,
Really?
And so, but and same thing with like Marine Corps reconnaissance, those special operations type of things. And you don't just like go there and like you just get accepted into it and then you just become one. Like you got to try out, and the tryouts are not a joke. So, and law enforcement world, right? So like when I joined the SWAT team, I was only on the SWAT team for maybe, I don't know, a couple of years. And then they were looking for sniper observers. And at the time we only had, I think, 2 or 3. One of the guys, was getting out. We wanted to build our sniper team up with Northwest Regional SWAT. And so like, I'm like, I'd love to do it. I love shooting, and I was like a 4th award expert in the Marine Corps, not to brag or anything like that. But I was like, I enjoy
Absolutely,
shooting.
brag it up.
I got a niche for it, right? So why not? I'll shoot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I went to the class, and we trained for all those types of certifications. You go to like down the police academy down like Plainfield, or like Camp Atterbury just south of Indianapolis, and that's where I went to sniper school down there. It's a couple weeks long, but they give you the very basics, but then you come back, and I honestly I learned a very good ground level entry guy, right, as a sniper. But I learned a lot more from the guys I served with. The guys that I served with on the Northwest Regional SWAT, I mean, they were instrumental. The snipers on that team, they taught me so much. And it's continuing education, because every year, you got to qualify, so many times a year. And, you got to keep your certifications up. You got to do a lot of training, and a lot of it's on your own, though. So a lot of it's, self-initiating. So luckily I live in Lowell, and I've got 20 acres I live on. And so I can go in my backyard and I can go out there and just lay there on the ground and shoot. I go out there like in the wintertime, and even though most people the average person just doesn't do that. Like I'd go out there and just sit out there. I would freeze my butt off and I would shoot, or when it's hot as heck out and you're laying in the bushes and, hey, you just got to go out there. You got to, it's self-discipline. You got to do it. You got to practice, because you never know where you're going to be. I saw something not long ago. Somebody shared this picture of when I was like on a rooftop. Like I was on like a garage, because we were, there was a murder at the Edible Arrangements in Cherville on 30, right?
I remember seeing that.
So our team got deployed for that because we believed the suspect was in his house. It was like unincorporated Crown Point or Cherville or something like that. So our team set up there, and I was on this house like, a block over, and apparently the guy took a picture of me on his roof. It was cold out there. I was all bundled up, but you just never know like what spot you're going to be in. You don't know the time. It's always, I feel like every single time we get stuck in like that, it's always so cold or so hot, and it's just the most miserable time. Or there's 1,000 mosquitoes getting ready to carry you off.
Oh, jeez.
You can't do anything because you don't want to give away your position, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going back to that self-discipline. It's there's a lot to it, and yeah. Mentally, I think it's not as hard. If I ever had I never had to pull a trigger. Thank goodness. It's not an easy thing. I've known officers who have had to, and it's not something that it's easy to recover from. Some guys do it a little bit easier than others. Some guys struggle with that for the rest of their life. It's just the nature of our job, and I'm just blessed that I've never had to do that. Was I ready to have to do that? Yeah, I was. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've loved it, doing it for I think I was a sniper on the team for about 10, 12 years. And since we've been able to build the team up, at one point I think we had like six guys on the team, on our team solely as sniper observers. So it's and we started, like I said, just a couple of guys. We were down to 2 guys at one point.
Oh wow.
Yeah, actually, I think we were down to just me for a little while, and then we were luckily able to get some guys who were interested in it, because that's not something that you ask for volunteers to do that. Guys. There's not a lot of people who just want to do that. Especially on a SWAT team, they want to kick the door in.
Right.
Which I've been part of that too, but. Because that's fun. You want to go inside. You want to be able to to put the cuffs on the bad guys. You know what I'm saying? As a sniper observer, you're like way out here. Like nobody even knows you. Nobody even knows you exist. kind of thing, you know?
You're just out, You're like in the background kind of thing, but I mean, not to say that's not.
But it's
important
no,
for anything.
No, we brag all the time like you guys need us.
Yeah, of course.
One of the most important part of this whole team.
It was huge in the news. Like everybody knew about it. It was very local, so it was obviously a difficult situation for the community to get over. So was there another situation like that?
Man, I mean, we live in Lake County. It's a pretty diverse county, which is something that I love about Lake County in particular, you know. But it's busy, honestly, you know, and I think that there's a lot of crime. You know, there's crime everywhere you go. We'll say that, right? There's crime everywhere. You can't get away from it. There's some sort of crime everywhere you go. You know, we're lucky. You know, we live in this area because we don't have murders every day. You know, we have good schools. You know, throughout the entire county. It doesn't matter if you're a cop in, you know, the southern part of the county or the northern part of the county. Like when another officer needs help, like they're going to be there for you. So even though that edible arrangements was a big deal at the time, you know, a lot of people talked about it because it was hype at the time, right? But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of things that, you know, we respond to that, you know, people had no idea, you know what I'm saying? Like the general public doesn't see it. You know, if it happened in Maryville, only the Maryville residents really see it, kind of deal with it, you know? The Tri-Town's always been like, if something happened in St. John, Sheriffville, Dyer, it seems like all three towns kind of know, you know what I'm saying? And then you got like, you know, but I mean, in my time just on the SWAT team, I mean, I've been all over Lake County. And, you know, when our team gets called out, it's for a high risk, you know, situation. You know, for a long time, at least we have protocols that, you know, stages of it. But typically we get called off whenever there's a weapons offense involved or there's weapons involved or something is implied. So either it's a threatening situation or someone is suicidal or homicidal. You know, in my entire time with the SWAT team, as a matter of fact, since our team has been birthed in like 1992, I think is when he started it, in Maryville, we've never had to take anybody's life, you know, so, which is amazing, you know. Yeah. And we got negotiators as part of our team too, you know. So, but until that negotiator team came onto our team, like, you know, it was just our guys helping the local department negotiate the surrender and, you know, coming out and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, did it always end in good terms? No. I mean, we've had people unfortunately take their lives while we were right outside their doors. There's nothing you can do with that, you know. And it's hard to swallow. You sort of become a little bit jaded to it, you know, in this job. Not that it doesn't affect you, it doesn't break your heart. It always broke my heart. You know, we've had some pretty rough, like domestic kind of stuff, you know. And it's just, you know, I mean, you know, I try not to sugarcoat too much of it, I guess, or, you know, I try to, but, you know, I'm not gonna lie, man. There's times where I cried on the way home, but when I walked in the door, it's all good, you know. My wife and kids are like, hey, everything's good up that. It's all good. We're moving on now, you know, and you kind of put it behind you, but you're not living with that. I would say probably one of the biggest moments we had in Lake County, as far as law enforcement goes, was probably the Lake Central lockdown a couple of years ago. That was probably the biggest, like, police response from, like, every agency. I mean, we had Illinois agencies, the feds were there. I mean, it was absolutely insane, dude, you know, and it all fell into place the way it should have. And luckily, it was a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, we learned a ton from that. We debriefed that situation many times over with schools, local police departments, fire departments, parents, different towns. I mean, we have done debriefs on that so many times. But that's important, though, because we saw the value in that. Chief Flores in St. John was instrumental in things like, you know, I was fortunate enough that, you know, he asked me to come along with, and, you know, my chief Alcott was awesome about it. You know, I mean, they were great, but it all worked out. But it made me feel really good knowing that, hey, we got our shit together.
Absolutely,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
on different levels, so many different levels too.
So many people you know, involved in that. And I remember there were so many parents showing up, and they were in and I was actually in with my mom because Lily and my younger brother Charlie, they were in school. Yeah. And I would just remember they were like texting us, and we were getting like you know, suspicious texts from them, like, hey, there's something going on. And the first thing we did was, you know, as a parent or an older brother, the first thing you want to do is just get there and, you know, see what you can do. Right. But, you know, having you guys go out there and handle the situation the way that you did effectively and making sure everybody was safe, it turned out to be a false alarm, but I think that was definitely an eye opener. Like, you know, where society is now, that it happens, you know, in schools, and it's unfortunate, but you know, it's something that we got to prepare for.
Yeah, you know, and it's something I've had like, and you know, working in the schools when I first started working in the schools, even you know, even today, like I've always had a little bit of anxiety about it, right? And then there are some years where I was like on super high alert just because I felt like there was so much tension, you know, in the world, right? And like just you know, with you know other incidents that happened, you know, so you know, whenever you see like a major like when you hear about something nationally, you're like, oh shit, you don't want a copycat. That's what you don't want, you know, and. So like now your alerts, not that I wasn't on high alert already, but now I have like major anxiety because I don't want any, and it sounds corny, but like, hey, listen, every kid that went to Lake Central was my kid. You know, when I was there, as long as I was there, you know, those are my kids. And you know what? And that's how I always kind of like taking that role is, look, you know, I'm gonna treat them the way I'm gonna treat my own kid or, you know, my friends' kids or anybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm always gonna be there to help them out, you know, and so like, I've had a lot of anxiety over the years. Let me just tell you, you know, and you know, I learned it really quickly that you know, as big of a district it is, you know, you can't control everybody, and you know, we could try to get people to understand things and try to lead them, you know, as much as you can, and you know, it's tough. I've had some heartbreaks. Don't get me wrong. I've had some heartbreaks, but I've had a lot more positives. I will tell you.
You said like when you were working at Lake Central that you kind of treated all those kids as like your own. And I'm going to come out and say it, and I definitely felt that. And I think all of my cousins, all the Bourne girls, all my cousins, all my, you know, brothers and sisters and my friends, like everybody always looked up to you as like the guy there. Like you were extremely popular just because of your personality and like how good of a person you are. And I think like you made a lot of people feel safe.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's honestly, that means more to me than anything else. That means the world to me. And you have no idea. Like that's, you know, when I do it, it's not because I want that recognition, you know what I'm saying? But I do it because like, I have a heart for, you know, I mean, I live the life of service, you know, I just want to help people out, you know, especially when people are in trouble, you know, whether they did something on their own or they need help. I want to be able to. I've always just want to be the guy to help people out, you know. And but to do that, you have to have a good reputation, right? And you gotta set a good example that you know that so that kids especially will want to come and talk to you, you know, when they do need your help because that's tough, man. Yeah. I didn't talk to anybody when I was a kid. Like I would have never gone up to anybody back when I was a kid and told them some of the things that kids tell me nowadays. I'm like, ugh. I mean, I've had some. If I could tell you some names, oh my goodness. And, you know, and actually I know a kid that would be totally fine me using his name who definitely knows your family. But I don't want to embarrass him, but I love this guy. I love this kid ever since he was like this little. But I mean, he's told me so much and he's helped me out in my career. Honestly, I learned so much from kids. I've learned so much over the years. And honestly, I've learned how to be a better dad. I've learned how to be a better husband. I've learned how to treat people the right way. I've learned patience, first of all. I learned patience like instantly working in the schools. You know, so I mean, I try to, you know, it's amazing how much I've grown because of you guys, honestly, because of kids.
I feel like that's a very unpopular way as an adult now to look at, you know, learning from the kids because I mean, my parents alone, they said, you know, we learn from you guys every day. Like we would be, you know, wrong to say that we knew everything and like, this is how it is and we can't learn anything from you. And I feel like that's a very like, you know, old, you know, mindset to have. But now that you took that, I think that's why, you know, all these kids were looking up to you in that because they felt that genuine, like, hey, I'm going to treat you like a person. I'm not going to treat you like and look down at you because of age, you know? And I feel like that was a big thing for me is like growing up is just, I had great role models. Yeah. Like I grew up with, you know, my dad showing me the ropes, but you know, some people you're not as fortunate. And I think you filled that role for, you know, a lot of people at Lake Central. And I know, you know, personally, I know a few people too. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, your time there, it was just fun. Like you made it a fun environment. You weren't so serious.
It was fun for me, dude. Honestly.
Yeah. So take me through that time, like when you were a DARE officer or a resource officer, like just kind of take me through your time there.
So I started in the DARE program, and it's funny because like a lot of people like rip the DARE program. They're like, they got the stupid shirts that have different other meanings now, whatever. But honestly, the DARE program, it started. We kind of got away from the DARE program. It's really fallen off naturally. I liked teaching the DARE program when it would talk about like substance abuse and like certain types of substances are out there, and and then it kind of got into like I don't know, like more about feelings and this and that, and not that that's not a good thing, but it kind of took away from what the DARE program originally was. And I get it's got to evolve, but the way it was evolving, like me and Officer Kissinger and some of the other DARE officers in our area were kind of like, I don't know. I mean, we can still teach classes. Maybe it just won't be the DARE program, or we now it kind of got away from that, and then departments or schools were kind of starting their own programs, right? Like Hobart, those guys, I love those. They do like oh my gosh, I can't think of the stinking name of it right now, but it's a great program. Like something let's talk about. I'll think of it. It'll come to me. Anyways, old guy moment. But so when I first got into the DARE program, like I said, it was about substance abuse and how things affect not just the person who's using it, but everybody else around them. And I mean, I loved it. I thought it was cool. I got that was probably one of the scariest moments of my life, though, going in and talking to the kids in front of an entire class by yourself, and all eyes are on you. As a police officer, most cops don't like that kind of stuff. I'm gonna tell you right now. That's why most cops don't have nothing to do with the kids or the schools, because like talking in front of a group of kids scares the hell out of officers. And it's, really in most cases, I think there's a lot of officers out there afraid to talk in public, period, to a group of people. Like on the street, when a traffic stop, at a grocery store, like at the park, that's one thing. But like in a formal setting type of, I mean, that's tough for a lot of officers. But it was tough for me too, and I was able to get through those, the initial hump of it. But I try to make it fun, and one thing I really, I had a good group of teachers when I first started. They were awesome at Kaler, and actually a lot of those first few years of me being in the schools, I learned so much from those teachers and the principals like Tim Doyle at Kaler, and I mean they just took me under their wing, and they really guided me, and it felt like it was like a second family from the police department. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it was awesome. And I embraced it and I ran with it, and I instantly fell in love with it was my town. It was Dyer, right? And so like our police department always pride ourselves on being like, oh, we're Dyer, and we do this and we do that, and we pride ourselves on community service, and the community outreach, and we loved it. And I had guys like Kissinger and Troy Grady and Bazant. I mean, those were the guys before me, and so I'm like, I had great guys to look up to. I mean, let's go. And so I just kind of ran with it and kind of continued that on. And I did the DARE program for, I don't know, like 6-7 years maybe. And then the SRO program started going around nationally. It was already a thing, just wasn't really too big in our area. But when I was doing the DARE program, it was just the Dyer schools. And I wanted to get Lake Central so bad, man. I wanted to get in the high school and teach a class at the high school, like a DARE program. But it just wasn't really getting there yet. And I'm like, man, how do I get in these other schools? I just want to get in Lake Central. And then Dr. Veraco, Al Gandolfi, assistant superintendent and superintendent at the time, they were like, hey, but we want to do an SRO thing. And, there was already, a couple people that were already in place. But, one was retiring, and, and I'm like, man, how cool would that be, man? I could go and work in all the Lake Central schools, not just my 3 Dyer ones. This would be amazing. And so I applied for it, and they gave me that opportunity, man. And I was like ecstatic. I was through the roof. I could not wait. And I just started bouncing around from school to school. Every school is different. Every elementary school is different than the next. That's what I loved about it, because you never knew what you're getting yourself into. Kids do the funniest stuff. I love it. When you go to elementary schools, they all love you as the cop. You want to get hugs all day. They give you hugs. And then you get in the middle school, a little bit rougher, because, now you got attitudes forming. There's a big difference between 5th grade and 8th grade.
Of course.
A huge difference in kids growing up and maturity levels and whatnot. But you know what? I was nervous going into the high school, because these guys, these are young adults, right? and they're smart. One thing I learned when I started teaching DARE, they taught me as an instructor was don't ever lie to a kid. Don't ever lie, and if you lie, you better go with that lie for the rest of your life, because the second you get caught in a lie, or the second you try to deceive a kid, they're going to always remember that, and your reputation is out the window. And so that was one thing I just didn't do. When kids asked me in the DARE program earlier on, like I'm teaching 5th and 8th grade classes, they're like, "Have you ever smoked?" "Yep, I have smoked." "I did." "Did you drink alcohol?" "Yep, I did." But and I explained. I told them, I tried to make it as politically correct as I could, but I didn't lie to them. And so I think that probably helped me earn reputation. When I was just starting in the schools. And then when I got to the high school, I was like, oh my gosh, I got high school kids and they're going to rip me, man. Like I'm afraid to go in a classroom right now because they're going to totally make fun of me, or I'm going to walk out there with my head down. Like I'm so scared right now, but no, the kids, even at Lake Central, they were great. The teachers, the staff were great. And I just fell in love with it. And I've been in love with it ever since, honestly. I miss it so much right now. Crazy amount of things that I always think about Lake Central schools all the time.
I think they're missing you too. Just the community around too, but I think I want to relate Lake Central into how the world is now. I think me looking in and seeing my experience there is totally different between what happened with, Lily and Charlie's experience.
Sure.
And I think people are starting to go to the public school route. Or the private school, right, rather than public school, just because of PC stuff and what they're trying to push, furries and stuff like that. And what would you say to people saying, oh well, I want to take my kids to private school now, and we're kind of disregarding public school?
Honestly, I feel like whether it's private or public, I don't care what school you put your kid in, even if it's online, right? You got to be invested in your kid. You have to be there. You got to be present, and part of that too is, is like, it always broke my heart. There were so many kids just like at the police department, right? On the street, just because I'm talking to somebody doesn't mean they're in trouble. I try to bring that mentality into the school. Just because I'm talking to a kid doesn't mean they did anything wrong, and that's something I tell any class or any group of kids I'm talking to and they're asking me questions. I like to always kind of throw that in there because I love to talk to people. Like when I was younger, I didn't talk to any. I was a pretty quiet kid, but now, I could talk for you. I could talk for hours and hours and hours, right? There were so many kids who I've met over the years, and it broke my heart because sometimes it brings me back from when I was a kid and what I was going through, and it didn't matter, whether it's a loss of a family member or domestic situations at home, financial issues, like the stuff that happens at home certainly comes into school, right? And vice versa. The stuff at school then goes at home. But a lot of what even myself, I'm guilty of this too with my own kids, right? They have a bad day. I don't know what kind of day they've had. Then they come home, well, hey, dad's been at work, mom's been at work all day. There's, hey, we're stressed about finances, or we got to do this, or we got that going on, blah, blah, blah. It's just the busyness, right? And a lot of what I've seen is a lot of those kids I've talked to is their parents aren't there, So whether they want to do private school or public school, but then you have the flip side. Then you got parents who are too much. Like they got to hey, just let the reins go a little bit and let your kid grow up. Let them be a kid. And then when they're old enough, they're still in school, guide them. Don't take over the rule for them. Let them make decisions, Of course, you don't want them to fail, And so but as a parent, that's what we're trying to do is guide them along the way. Let your kid make those decisions. And they have the support staff at school. And I'm telling you, I have worked with some private schools since I've, retired from, Lake Central and the police department. And honestly, I didn't know what they were all about. Now that I'm in there, the only thing that's different about them is the funding. It's funding. It's financial stuff that's coming into play. Those private schools, they're still, and not, you do have some maybe that are some a little bit more strict. But man, I'll tell you what, I've been in quite a few schools in my day, and they still have the same problems. They might not be on as big of a level, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you think you're going to get away from a vape problem, that's in every school across the country. It don't matter. That's even at your at-home school, private school, public school. I can find it easily. drugs. People all have this misconception of like, oh, well, somebody lives in, for a while there. Oh, there's Lake Central, there's cocaine, or there's heroin, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, really? I've never one time seen heroin in Lake Central High School. I can honestly tell you that. Now, I've dealt with kids who have been using drugs before. I'll tell you right now, it wasn't heroin, wasn't meth. Never seen either of them in schools. I hope to God that nobody ever does. Because then, hey, we're in big trouble, or somebody's in big trouble. Now, don't get me wrong. Is there substances? Yes, there is. But it's in every school, I'm telling you. And so when you talk about just the way that, things are taught, or even books that are in the schools, I know it's highly controversial, but honestly, it could be in the school, but a kid can find it online just as easy if they're interested in it. If they want to get something, they're going to get it, But I will say this, there's something I've learned in all my years is that it don't matter what school it is, the people who are working in the schools are saints in my eyes. And everybody thinks that they're like, just because they didn't get their way about something, well, that's an awful administrator, or that's a horrible teacher, or they should not be teaching this way. Well, it's from their life experiences of themselves. Like, they're humans just like everybody else. But these people that are working in schools, at least everyone that I ever met, they love kids. And that's why they took that job, right? Yeah. And they want to help kids, and they want to teach kids, and they want to educate them and let them grow up to do big things in this world one day. But I'll tell you, I love seeing, graduation every year, seeing the teachers' reactions when they see like their kids are graduating. It's awesome. I love it. I love watching. I still go to the graduations. I'll always go to the graduations, as long as they let me, And so, graduation it's a big deal. Or, even at the end of the school year, hey, I passed. I'm making it to the next grade level, Yeah. It's an awesome feeling to be part of that, somebody's life, knowing that you've helped them get to that next level in life,
Of course. That's an interesting answer, because I feel like that actually makes more sense to me rather than what the media is pushing, right? It's like, public schools are all bad, but it starts in the house, right? It starts with your parents and what you're able, or what you're letting your kids do, and this and that. So that was like an eye opener for me to listen to that, because what is the root cause? We got great teachers at LC. Yeah. The parents need to take accountability, I think, right? You gotta, if you're letting your kids do this and that, absolutely, it's a team effort. Absolutely.
And I say even keeping schools safe. We've always talked about listen, you want to keep our schools safe, then it's a team effort from parents, but everybody's got to be cooperative in this. So it's parents, it's the school staff, and then it's your police departments, and it's your community. Yeah. It takes everybody. Everybody's got a vital part of that, But what they need to be is flexible. And they got to be able to communicate. And there's a lot of people, they believe in conspiracy theories this way or that way. And, there's always somebody's going to try to throw a wrench in that. But if the majority of the people are like, hey, listen, we believe in this, and we got to work together to do this, and this is what we need to accomplish. It could be done, it should be done, But really, when it comes down to it, we're there to keep our kids safe and keep our faculty safe, Right. If anybody ever fights against that, my gosh, that's a problem. Maybe that's the problem. At least the way I look at it.
It's pretty universal, I think, of just at the end of the day, what's the most important thing? Keeping people safe, and, having the best education. And if you're in it for the wrong reasons like that, I don't understand. But I agree. I do think teachers go into it. I know so many family friends that are teachers and that, coach or, are involved with kids and
the amount
that process.
Time that they give is insane.
It's crazy. Just looking at Dyer Little League, singly.
There you go.
The time I was playing baseball from 4 to 12 through there, and all those years and all those hours, all those coaches put in, it's like, come on. Obviously they're doing it to see those kids progress into, young adults, and they're learning, great things from these coaches and stuff. And looking as old as I am now, looking back at those situations, it's like, wow, my dad made that effort to go out and, be a coach and volunteer. They're not getting paid. Nope. There's a strictly volunteer basis. So I think diving a little bit deeper and not just looking at the cover of the book, open it up a little bit, dig in, try to find a root cause for it, because I think what you just said, it's not as easy as, you can point fingers. Oh, it's the teachers. Oh, it's the police officers. Oh, it's this. But, I feel like they're just kind of being a little oblivious to the fact of, the root cause is a little deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've always looked at things sort of that way as, I don't believe something, especially like certainly like right now. I know people who are in the media, okay, and they're good people. I know that, with social media platforms, like even with the media locally, I don't trust anything. Like until it's like right in front of me, like I know for sure, like that's what I'm going to believe in, right? And whether you are, voting for Trump or you're voting for Biden or whoever, it might else come out of the woodwork. It's like, I'll be honest with you, like I don't trust anything that anybody puts about any, like, because like one day, then you have your different, like, your different news branches, right? Or it's like, who do you really trust?
Right.
And I've got friends who are diehard both way, either way, right? I've always been stuck in the middle, and I'm just like, listen, I just want to see it. I want to see what this is happening. So like, whether it's, taxes or it's, just different entities, just different ways. Like I typically always vote for, whoever's going to really, I look at it, who's going to support our military and who's going to support our law enforcement, who's going to support our schools, who's going to support our kids. I guess I look at those things, or those are things that are important to me, safety, but it's, I don't know. I hate talking politics. Politics like probably the worst thing you can talk to me about, honestly, because I'm just like, just disgruntled because it's a rough time. It has been a rough time for a long time. Like I just want it to turn. We need it to turn somehow. I don't know when it's going to be.
Yeah. So I won't dive into any politics specifically, but that was interesting what you said about media of, the distrust in those big corporations. Mm-hmm. But would you say you kind of, dug into more of the podcast route, like the long form conversational, media that
I have a little bit. Yeah, I have actually, not a ton. Mm-hmm. Honestly, like for a long time, because of my job, right? My phone has been attached to me like 24/7. And, again, not that I'm an old guy, I'm only 46, right? But like I didn't have these when, I didn't even have a cell phone until I was like mid-20s, and there were times in my life where that phone, I let it take me over. It just took over my world, right? And it was always right there, everywhere I go. And it still is to this day. But when, that last couple of years, my phone never stopped. Because either I was getting a message from either someone I knew in town or, somewhere, right? A friend, somebody, family. Then you got the police departments. One of the police departments, but I worked for Dyer, is my department. And then you have 10 different buildings. And then you have, it's all networking. And of course, I did that. Part of that was because I did that, because of what I do, right? But like, or even on the SWAT team, we get called out. We get paged out through our cell phones. We get an alert on our phone, through a service, right? And so I could never get a break from it. And it drove me absolutely crazy. And when I did retire, it was such a culture shock to me. It was like, whoa, all of a sudden my phone, it took a few weeks, maybe about a month. And all of a sudden, for a while, there was nothing. And I'm like, whoa. And I felt like I kept taking my phone. I'm like, wow, I didn't get anything. Like, this is weird. Like, how come I haven't gotten a call or a text or an alert or something, Because at one point I turned all my notifications even off because I need them on. I just kind of looked at my phone constantly. And now it's like, so for a long time I got away from even messing with my phone. I just recently, maybe over the past few months, where I'm like, all right, I got to get back into things again and get back in the now, but not go crazy with it. I mean, there were times where I actually shut down like some of my social media platforms because I'm like, you know what, taking a break. Man, I felt so good.
Yeah.
You know what? And for the first few days, you're like, oh, I wonder what's happening. But you know what? When you don't have it on there and it's just kind of like gone, man, it felt really good. You know what? I'm thinking, man, I should do this more often. It's pretty awesome. But then there's always something going on that you just want to know about, right? And what do you do then? Well, that's the big dilemma. What do you do?
Yeah. I think Elon Musk buying Twitter was a huge thing for, for, just normal people trying to get real news,
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of leaned in towards X a little bit.
I too, yeah.
I'm huge on Joe Rogan. I love.
Yeah, me too.
I just love learning from, he has on so many different types of people. And I mean, you could find like, a Gary Brecka guy or, scientists, doctors, politicians. So it's like, you can't really manipulate that long form podcast. Like, obviously you could with an agenda and you could push a certain thing. Right. But you're kind of seeing, I know Robert Kennedy Jr., he's been going on, long form podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Like, I think we're going to start to see, presidents, do that more rather than going on CNN or whatever.
Right.
But, talk to me a little bit about your transition from the military and, being a police officer and your time you served there to just civilian life. I know that could be challenging for people, getting back into it. So, how have you, dealt with that, going back into just normal life?
Coming out of the Marine Corps, I mean, they were there for you. Like, it was like job security, right? Because you live there. So you have a place to stay. Your bills are pretty much paid because, you get a paycheck while you're in. So you only have so many bills that you can even have to pay out, right? You have your car insurance and, whatever else. And not a whole lot. I mean, they even feed you there, right? So if you didn't want to eat at the chow hall, you can go buy your own food. But then you just go and eat whenever pretty much, you got 3 meals a day, So like they pretty much they're like the glorified mom and dad, like they're always taking care of you. Then you come out of the military, you go back home, and now it's back all on you. So especially when you haven't been there for so long, and you come back to now you go into the civilian world where, nobody's telling you what to do, nobody's guiding you, I guess, along the way. So now it's kind of like now you're on your own. So I think I think most of us probably moved back in with the family members, something like that. Then you have to start applying for jobs. It was rough when I first came home. All I knew is I wanted to be a cop. But you can't just apply to be a cop. You got to go through the process. So back then, back in 2002, when I got hired in Dyer, and actually I started, it was 2000 and 2001. I mean, I applied almost in every department in Lake County. And back then the numbers were through the roof when it came to testing. I mean, Dyer, we had a few hundred people that applied when I applied, and then, there's a written test, there's a physical fitness test, and you drop so many people along the way. And then at the very end, you only have so many people left. And then, they do background checks on you and you go through interview and all that kind of stuff. And then you drop it down even more. And then they put you into numbers, how you rank, and that's how you get picked. And there were several departments. So I was number 1, number 2 on the departments. And some of them I even tested twice for, and I just didn't get hired because that town just wasn't hiring at the time. So I was crushed because I was like, well, I just want to be a cop. What do I do until then, And so I did some crappy jobs, most random things. Like I worked at, I was doing blacktop work, for some guy, crazy. I don't even know. I don't even know how I met this guy, honestly. I have no idea. And actually I was down at IU at the time, living with my girlfriend at the time. And it was, all my buddies were still down there getting ready to graduate from college. I'll just go hang out with these guys and have a job until I get hired somewhere. And I applied even the police department's down there even, so just wasn't getting called yet. So, and then just worked odds and ends jobs, but I worked for AT&T cable at the time, installing cable and disconnects. I worked for Pepsi, which I loved working at Pepsi. And actually, when I was working at Pepsi, I took a little bit of a pay decrease to get hired at Dyer PD at the time because they were making a lot of money at Pepsi back in the day out of Munster. Mm-hmm. They made huge money, and they should still be, but then unfortunately, technology took over, and you're not getting all that commission like you normally would. So then I was working from job to job, and I finally got picked up in Dyer, which was awesome, and I was very thankful. And of course, after I got in the academy, then I started getting calls from other police departments saying, "Hey, we want you to come and talk to us, come get an interview, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Well, I promised myself the first department I'm going, and I'm going at it, and I'm staying there until I'm not happy, And so and Dyer was great to me. The town was absolutely amazing. The department was great to me. I do miss it there. I don't miss, the little petty stuff, every job comes along with it, but I miss the people. I miss the town. And I loved it, like Dyer Little League, you said, I didn't even have kids until I was 30 years old. I was a cop for 5 years before I even had my first kid. And, but watching all you guys growing up playing ball, I wanted to coach then because I was still like I played men's softball for like years in like the beer leagues and stuff. And I loved it. And I just wanted to play baseball. It was my favorite sport ever. And watching you guys, I mean, I would hang out at the ballpark, and sometimes I'm like, man, I hope people won't think I'm like a creeper or something like that because I'm always at the baseball field. But I loved it, you know.
Yeah.
And I could not wait until I had my own kids, my boys, so I could coach them and like be part of it. And so my oldest Dean, I mean, he started in Dyer Little League.
That's awesome.
You know, when we moved to Lowell, like it was a totally culture shock because like Dyer Little League is like, especially then, was the shit. Like it was, it has been for many years, right? And then, you know, no offense, like the Lowell just wasn't like built up yet. Like they're I mean, they're getting there, you know, and but it was a different feel, right? And so like I was coaching in Dyer at the time, and my friends were like, dude, you could actually, even though you live down there, Dean can still play baseball here. I'm like, man, that would be awesome. Like I should do that, but you know, like I don't know. I just want him to play baseball with the kids he's going to school with, you know, in our neighborhood, and you know that kind of thing. And I didn't want to take that away from him, you know. And so I'm like, you know what, we're going to start our thing down there. It's all good, but I appreciate the offer, you know. That's why I kept up with everybody over the years, you know, honestly. And I still go to the tournaments when you guys were playing All-Stars and like waiting for someone to, you know, be the state champions in 12-year-old baseball. Yeah. That was awesome every year.
It was.
That was like a big thing. And that's something I always remember in my time in Dyer, though, because it was such a big thing for our community.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I love that. You know, I thought that was awesome. It was a big thing for me when I was a kid, you know, and I thought it was pretty neat, you know, to be part of all that.
Dyer Little League, looking back at my time there, I mean, like just the team and how everybody just came together through All-Stars. Yeah. It was so cool. And I mean, there was a lot of pressure, and I mean that. I think
the pressure was crazy for you guys. I felt bad for you guys, honestly. In a way, I was happy, but I felt bad for you guys.
I think it was good though. I think it taught me a lot at that young age to like, you know, progress my baseball career, because I mean, your baseball career starting at Dyer Little League, you know, getting in the All-Star tournament and, you know, playing in those high-pressure games, it's only going to set you up for Lake Central, which is 10 times the much pressure.
Tell me about it.
You know what I'm saying? When you're going to the state finals and stuff like that, playing in regionals, I mean, those games, the crowds, I mean, learning at that young and, you know, getting that transition there, I think was pretty cool.
And, you know, and you're saying that, like, even like Lake Central baseball, I mean, you know, so I took a lot of pride in like watching that. Even like the girls softball was like, they were studs. I mean, Dyer, the town, I mean, all the, you know, it was just really cool. Then to watch the kids, like all you guys like growing up over the years, and then get to Lake Central on I call it the big show, right?
Yep.
And to see the kids out there playing like every sport, you know, and like, it just amazes me. Like, I mean, I thought we were pretty awesome when we were kids growing up, but like the athletics nowadays is just mind blowing to me. Like what our youth can do out there in any sport, swimming, tennis, golf, football, baseball, softball. I mean, in every sport that's out there, I mean, it's just incredible.
It is.
I think it's just the neatest thing to be, you know, and to be part of that is really cool, I think, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's awesome. So like, I mean, so growing up in Dyer, I mean, I did grow up. I grew up a lot in Dyer, you know, as a cop, as a community member. You know, I didn't always live in town. I lived in Cherville a little bit too during my career, but my wife is from Dyer. I mean, it was always tight. It was funny because like I always kind of was around like the older, not older, oh my gosh, they're all going to hate me when they're not old by any means. They were just a few years older, but they were always like bigger brothers and sisters, like all the different neighborhoods and like, you know, all, like your parents and like, you know, like, you know, and because your parents are not old. I'm just going to tell you guys. They're not old. But it's just like they were older than I was. Like they were my big brothers and sisters, like all of them were. Every one of them, they all took care of me all the time. You know, and so like I felt like, I'm like, well, I got to help take care of their kids, you know, kind of thing. I mean, there were times where I coached kids and I didn't even have kids on the team. You know, like some people just ask me to, I'm like, dude, I'll help you coach if you need somebody extra, you know. But I loved it. I could not wait to have my own family. You know, that's one of the biggest reasons why I actually didn't stay in the Marine Corps too, is one, I wanted to be a cop, but I didn't want to. My family, like, was so broken when I first, when I was real little, growing, you know, and being a ward of the state, and you know, our family had, you know, was just torn. And I didn't want that for my own family. I wanted to give my kids a fair chance in life, and being able to try to grow up as normal as they possibly could is what we all think is a normal life for an American, right? And so I want to give that kit to my kids, and so, that's why, I came home from the Marine Corps and I just became, wanted to get that career started and, do that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, we're doing pretty good so far. But yeah.
So, kind of giving advice to like people aspiring to be cops or wanting to go in the military, what would you say to those people?
It's really cool that you said that, because I just had a guy, the last officer that just got sworn in Dyer actually was a LC kid. And, I honestly, I mean, when I met him, I didn't recognize him because he's a grown man now, and apparently, a couple of officers I talked to that said that, he had brought my name up in the interview when he got hired there. I'm like, wow, it kind of like, it hit my heart, man. I was like, whoa, like, wow, that's pretty cool, to think like, I never like thought about my job, like, kids looking up to me, like it's more like, hey, I'm just like a big brother, kind of, like, or I'm a dad. I'm just trying to help them out, like help raise them. But I never like thought that somebody wanted to be a cop because of me. Like that's blows my mind to me. Like just, I don't know. Like I'm about to get choked up right now. I'm not gonna cry on this. I'm gonna cry baby. But like, but there's a lot of. It's pretty cool to look back and like, there's a lot of kids from in our area right now who are young cops in our area. Even just over the past, like graduates, just since I've started working at Lake Central at the high school since 2014. Man, there's a ton of local police officers from Lake Central from that time and after.
That's awesome.
And it is the coolest thing. Even like military, so, not every, depending on, who you are, like what you want to do in the military, like honestly, like the Marine Corps is not for everybody. I mean, any branch of service is going to help somebody, right? I never thought I would ever, my younger days, I never would have said, go join the Navy or join the Air Force or the Marine Corps is the best, join the Marine Corps. Now, I lived and I learned and, now I'm like, listen, depending on what you want to do, this is what the branch of service you want to do this branch of service. But I just want to help guide them, and I think that it's commendable that, there's kids, because, there's a lot of people who are like, man, nobody wants to join the military anymore. Nobody wants to be a police officer. I mean, you hear that from time to time, but there are a lot of people who truly, they want that military life. They want to be in the military. They want to fight for our country. Same thing with law enforcement. We don't have as many people applying for it, but I'm telling you right now, we have a lot of people in this young generation who are like craving that role, and I commend them for it. I love it. I love seeing it. I've had some parents who, I'm not arguing with them. I've had good conversations with parents who are like, listen, Jerry, you need to talk to my kid. They want to go in the Marine Corps, they want to go to the military, and then they want to be a cop. And I'm like, cool. They're like, no, not my kid. Not my kid. And I'm thinking, what? Well, it's good enough for me, but it's not good enough for your kid, or it's good enough for our friends, their kid to do it, but it's not for yours. Like, I get the worry. One day I'll have to face the fact, perhaps I'll have to face the fact that one of my kids want to go in the military, or one of them want to be a cop. I mean, it's a different lifestyle. It's a different time in age and whatnot, but we have to have people step up.
Of course.
We have to. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, this nation is going to fail miserably, and it's not going to be good. And it'll be, there won't be any order, if we don't have law, and it'll be a scary, scary world that we live in, And so, but we have people, and I'm proud of the fact that, I know several kids in our area, a lot, I shouldn't even say several. There's a ton of kids who are interested.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah. The media was kind of pushing a little bit of this defund me or, defund the police, this and that, why do we need this? Right. Or even just now people pulling out their phones and recording police officers and just making their job a little bit harder. Like, what would you say to, police officers now that are dealing with that, give some a little advice on how to deal with situations like that now?
Honestly, I mean, most departments nowadays have body cameras on anyways.
Right.
And if they don't have a body cam on, honestly, I mean, almost every business has a camera. You drive up and down your street and you can see people got Ring doorbells. I mean, or they got camera systems up. So, I mean, and if you are doing your job right, if you're doing it the right way, it don't matter if there's cameras around or not. You know what I'm saying? And as police officers, yeah, we should be held a little bit higher standard than anybody else. We're the ones enforcing the laws, for crying out loud, you know? But if you're constantly as a first responder in any job as a first responder, like if you're worried about there being cameras around, people recording you, then I don't know if you're doing this for the right reasons then, you know?
Yeah.
Or you're at least, you're maybe not doing things probably the way you should be doing things, you know? So, I mean, is it frustrating? Yes. Because, you know, sometimes they put it like right in your face, or, you know, they get close. And I get, like, people, if you want to record, but like just do it from a safe distance and just get off my back.
Right.
Like, because you know what? I have a lot to worry about if I'm putting my hands on somebody because I'm taking them into custody, or there's already enough of things that we have to look for as first responders, as police officers, like, you know, like every body movement somebody makes, you know,
Yeah.
their tone of voice, just like, you know, you read people, but you also have to worry about one person. Sometimes there's multiple people, or if you're in an accident, you know, there's cars, there's traffic, there's a lot. It is it's a very multitasking job, excuse me, and it's just, you have to keep your awareness about you, because not that the dangers weren't there years ago, but there's a lot of danger out there. And unfortunately, there are people who would target us nowadays in law enforcement. And it's, you know, even, hey, listen, even fire departments are targeted, you know, at times. I mean, it's sad. It's the world that we live in. But I understand why officers get, you know, upset when somebody's like right up on us. You know, I don't like that either, you know. I don't like it when people like standing right behind me, and you know, you don't know like what they're doing behind you, you know. And so, I mean, I just want to be safe, dude. I just want to go home to my family. I want to do the job and move on. That's all.
Exactly.
That's it.
I feel like 99% of police officers and first responders just want to do their job and then get home safe to their family. I think it's just a respect thing. Like, you show respect to them, they'll show respect to you. I don't understand what is, you know, so difficult about
That's heartbreaking. You know, I saw that earlier in my career, you know, and I didn't quite get it. It really was eye-opening to me when I would be in my squad driving, just in patrol around Dyer, and if I stop and I saw somebody walking on the side of the street, and I'm like, hey, I'd stop. Hey, how you doing? Hey, that's what Officer Patrick did, right?
Yeah.
And hey, what's up? And they'd be like, what's wrong? What did I do? And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm just saying hi. They're like, you're walking. Like, oh, or hey, you're in the store. I'm just saying hi. I just wanted to just say hello. Hi, that's it. Just a friendly hello. And that's when I'm like, early in my career, I saw that. I'm like, that's so messed up. Like, Dyer's a good community. Like, why is it like this? So, especially when I saw kids out, I would always talk to kids, you know, and it kind of like started going along with that. Like, Kissinger used to do the exact same thing as I would. You know, there's a lot of officers that did that, you know, back then. And, you know, if you're personable with people, you know, they're going to come to you when they need you, when they need help, or when there's something bad is going on, or if they have information, it's like, hey, I heard this might be happening over here. Like, oh, well, thank you for giving that a heads up. If they don't know you, they're not going to ever tell you. They're not ever going to come to you. But that's part of, like, you know, if you're working in a community, you know, be truly invested in your community. You know, get out there and learn and talk to people, you know. Business owners. There's so many officers that hate to get out of their car and go talk to a business owner. Dude, get out of your car and talk. That's you're working for them, in a sense. Get out there and talk to people, you know. Everybody's like, oh, you know, you knew all this, you knew this person. Yeah, because I got out of my car, I talked to people, and I, you know, went in the community, and I made it a big deal. I made it purposely did that, you know. But that's the way I thought that was the right thing to do. It was the right thing, at least in my time.
Absolutely. I think people noticed that too, and that's why you had, you know, Officer Patrick was the guy. I mean, you were the guy growing up. Everybody just felt comfortable being around, and you definitely broke that like uneasy feeling being around police officers. I mean, growing up, even at Dyer Little League, it was just like, oh, they're here to watch. Like, it wasn't like, oh, you know, like I'm gonna hide or anything like that. It was like, oh, they're here to watch. It was cool.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I looked at the guys I was working with, like they're the guys, like they're my guys. You know, and like I looked up to them like that, you know, like, you know, and you know, some of them were a little bit more, you know, like talkative than others, but you know, I mean, I guess that's the same way I looked at them, the guys I've worked with over the years too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you've dedicated your whole entire career like serving and helping people. Like, how do you think that got instilled in you at like a young age from wanting to be a cop? And I know you said your dad was in the Marines. Like, how did that come about? You wanting to just dedicate your whole life, because that's so like such a selfless act to do, and I know so many people appreciate you for doing that. So I just want to get your.
Thank you for saying that.
Of course.
I just honestly, like, I needed a lot of help as a kid. I mean, my family, like I said, we grew up in a single family mom or single parent house, and she struggled with her health, and we were taken. I had 4 siblings, and we were taken by Department of Child Services, and it was tough. I mean, I bounced from foster home to foster home, and we were split from me and my little brother were so close, and we were 3 years apart, but we were the 2 younger ones, and there were years where we hadn't seen our older siblings for a couple of years, and it's weird because like I think about them, sometimes some years I think about them more than others, but like we never really grew up around each other. I just knew that when I was born up until like maybe 4 years old, 5, like I had older brothers and sisters, and then they were like gone. I didn't really know any different, what I'm saying? It's just the way that I grew up. And so, and that's why I became so flexible and kind of like roll with the punches, because you adapt to your environment, right? But I knew I needed that. I needed help from people. I needed guidance, like tremendously. And the people that helped me out when I was a kid were honestly teachers, the schools, the principals, and they were people who I really looked up to, like for like how to grow up and like how to learn. They taught me everything. Even I had a couple police officers too, and then that were friends with my dad, and my mom and dad were great role models for us. my brother Philip and I are two of the luckiest people that we know, honestly. And as corny as it sounds, but we were actually just talking about this on the phone the other day, and we don't talk a whole heck of a lot because he's busy and I'm busy. We always thought that we got that, I guess, the way that we treat others. Our beliefs in life and all that. We thought, honestly, we've always kind of assumed that was from our mom and our dad who adopted us, right? But the way that we carry ourselves, even, we were just talking about, like, man, part of that just like from like our biological family, like it's just like it's in us, it's that, it's genetics, I guess, because my older brother Jesse, the guy he's lived a rough life, but he's done amazing things, right? But he's got a soft heart. And I got a soft heart. My little brother's got a soft heart. And I know my sisters both have soft hearts, and they live in Southern Indiana. And that's just something that, just who we are, it's our chemistry, it's our makeup. And so, growing up then, I don't know, I just felt like if I saw somebody on the street, like I just felt bad for them, because I know what it was like. I know it was not to have money. I knew it was like to be made fun of as a kid, or to only have like a couple pairs of sets of clothes, because that's all we had when we were kids, And so, and it was rough. I've been through a lot of shit in my life, don't get me wrong, and growing up, and but even in my professional career, right, I've been through a lot because I've seen a lot and I've experienced a lot of things, and I don't know, I've always just wanted to be someone to take care of other people, There was one time, I'll never forget, it was a midnight shift in Dyer, and there was a guy who, I gave money to at a gas station one day. And I know some cops that don't give money to anybody, right? And so, like, I'm driving through, and I'm like, man, I see this guy sitting at a pump, him and his buddy. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. They're sitting there, their pockets are out, and they're sitting there, and like, they got nothing. They live not too much farther, right in Dyer. And so I'm like, hey, you guys okay? Just check on them, right? Because I drove through a couple times. There was nobody around. Drove through the third time. I'm like, oh, what's up with these guys? They're still sitting there. So I'm like, everything all right? And they're like, yeah, you know what? We just got back from Florida. We maxed our credit cards out. They were a younger guy. Maxed everything out. We have no cash. We can't even get gas home. I'm like, here, dude. Give them like $5 or $10. Here's enough, at least get you home. All right, cool. Well, 2 weeks later, right? I get called to a breaking and entering call. Suspect just ran out the door. One of my guys has cut him off in the front. I'm actually going in the subdivision, and I come up behind because, I like to chase people. I like to catch people, right? So I come up behind, right? And I'm like, oh, this guy, he's going to be going this way. I know he is. So sure enough, I think like criminals sometimes. I cut him off, chase him, get him, tackle him, get into it with the guy, put cuffs, drag him back, and take him back to the police department. Now I'm in there, in the booking, and I'm charging it, I'm doing all this stuff and paperwork and all that. And the guy all of a sudden he looks at me. He's like, now he looked a lot different then, right? He was all dirty and stuff, and plus he goes to high and all kinds of stuff. And he's like, I can't remember, I couldn't figure out where I knew you from, but now I recognize you. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm thinking, oh, great. It probably had this, I don't know, somehow, who knows, right? And he goes, and he's like, you're that cop. You're the cop from a couple weeks ago, bro. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, at BP, you gave me like $5 or $10 to get gas. And I go home, I go, oh, yeah, that's right. He goes, yeah, he's like, yeah, that was me, my boy. He's like, yeah, you know, I go, well, I'm glad you guys made it back, but what are you doing now? Like, why are you breaking in? Ended up being like a family member's house. He broke into and burglarized his own family member's house. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, man, I'm struggling. He's like, actually, I'm struggling so bad. That money that you gave me, he goes, I didn't ask him to turn the car on and see how much gas in it. That was his weight. So he's like, actually, you helped me buy crack that day. And I was like, what? And I was pissed. I'm like, dude, why would you even tell me that?
Yeah.
But now, that doesn't make me want to give anybody money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
But, you know what, maybe a month later, I did it again to someone else. I'm like, here's $12, dude, you're fine. But it's just my nature. Like, I feel guilty. Like, I feel bad. And I'll think about it, like, for, like, days. If I saw somebody who needed help, it's just who I am, you know? But I put that on, like, the way I grew up, and, you know, I saw my mom and dad were such good people, and they treat everybody fair. You know, I mean, they used to own a business when I was in high school. It was, you know, Baskin Robbins or 31 Flavors. Mm-hmm. And it was solely its own store back then. And I mean, they gave people jobs all the time. I mean, they took care of their employees. They were good to people. They're good to their family. They're good to their friends. I mean, my dad was a Munster cop for, 28 years. And even when a cop got in trouble, my dad still took care of him. He still, like, looked out for him. He still, like, hey, listen, I have to write you up, or I got to do this to you, or suspend you right now, but you're still a friend. I'm still going to take care. I'm still looking out for you. They were just fair people, and that's obviously, it was a big impact on my brother and I, and how we treat people, and how we treat people that we lead today.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love hearing, like, how you came about from your whole entire career. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But last question here.
Yeah.
So what are you working towards now? Like, what's your goal or vision? Anything you're working on going into?
Yeah, so I mean, it's when I first retired, I've been padding my resume for years to be a director of safety for a school, and I wanted to be a safety director. I wanted to be the guy that calling the shots, and I don't know. I mean, I never really big on titles or ranks and all that kind of stuff, but it just felt like if I really want to have some, like, a seat at the table to make bigger decisions, like, I want to be the person that now I can push this agenda for the safety, right? And I just felt like I got to be like that guy. So, I've been, Officer Kissinger, both of us, we were both been doing this. We had the same interest, and that's what we wanted to do. And so we network with everybody we can, whenever we can. And so, it just wasn't in the cards for me at the time at Lake Central, the position came up a little bit later on, but I'd already committed to this private security company in our area. It's called InPRO. And some friends of mine started this business, and it's, it was in the infancy stages when it was, when I came on board. And, we had some big, bright ideas on some things. And when I got into it, it was a little bit rougher than, trying to get some things going. It's unfortunate because especially in the schools, there are so many different types of safety protocols that are out there, right? It's these companies that really want to support the schools, like cameras or technology, and, even instilling, like, protocols that are out there, but they charge so much money. You know what? And they know that the schools are going to pay it. That's the problem. That's a huge problem. Like, I see these different, there's so many different good programs that are out there, but they cost so much money. And the schools have to apply for grants, and if they apply for this grant, then they can't do this other part to help their school out. It's not right. Yeah. I think that is a totally screwed up thing, right? So I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to try to do some school safety stuff, and we're going to not reinvent the wheel, but with InPRO, like, hey, we're going to test the market with, like, security guards. I'm a huge component of having an SRO in the building first, but I think that there's also a need to have other people in the security role other than just full-time cops. I think what we did was, once a school has an SRO in there, a program going, then let's hire some people who are, like, their helpers now, and they're unarmed security guards. So, like, currently, like, your building principals, your deans, sometimes your counselors at your schools are office staff, they are your eyes and ears of what's going on. They're the ones monitoring the hallways. And I think that it's important that they always do that because you have to know what's going on all the time. But, like people who like hall monitors, like the old school hall monitor person, right? They would walk around and check bathrooms, or, they should be like checking the parking lots, walking the halls, checking the things, or somebody who's sitting at a camera and being proactive and watching things, right? So I think that, that was a program that we tried to get in place, but, the schools have so much, they only have so much money and they're spending it on these other things that just kind of didn't take off yet. Now, we do have some guards in our area. I've trained some of the guards in our area in some of that stuff already. So that didn't kick off as fast or as much as I'd really hoped it would. And then part of the other thing is like I still want to do like presentations for like, substance abuse, student presentations. I've done a couple of those in the area now. And then I've always done like active shooter stuff or active threat stuff. I don't always like to say active shooter because it's not always active shooter. Like that does happen in a school, but there's so many other things that are threats to us in a school than a shooter. Okay, there's been a lot more knife incidents than there have been with guns in the schools. Okay, so we do active threatening or active threat training. And when my boss Eric and Jeff were like, this is a great program. We should really get this going. And we had a couple of organizations in our area that hired us, and I was traveling a little bit, and it was cool because we were training local businesses here, but then they have branches out and elsewhere. So I was doing a little bit of traveling. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the teaching aspect of it, and so that is where I'm at now. So the guard stuff just wasn't kind of like my thing. It just wasn't feeling good for me. And so I kept thinking like, why, maybe I should start my own LLC. And my wife actually was the one that really pushed this for me, which, I love her. And, she's, someone who's, she's just really influenced me to, stop selling yourself short and like get out there and like, you have so much going on, so much of this about like the schools and the law enforcement side of it and, the military and all this stuff, like, go out there and like do your thing. Like you should have your own company. I'm like, whoa, wait, hold on a second. Like, wait a minute. I don't know about all that. In a sense, I think that I have sold myself short a lot. And I always felt like I always had to have somebody that is leading me, and for the first time in my life, I think I'm trying to do that role, take that role on for myself and like kind of lead myself. Or, like lead the way for something different, and I know nobody else is doing, some of the things that I'm working on right now. And, will it take off? I don't know. I guess it's as much effort as I put into it, right? And like you said, like you're trying to get some things going. Like the same thing with me. I'm trying to get some things going. And, I hope that it will come. It'll come along. But, I know a lot of people, and I hate to be the guy that was like, hey, I need a favor, or hey, can I have a meeting with you here or there or whatever? And I don't know. I've just never been one to want to bother people either, though, but I know that's part of the game. Yep. Listening to your podcast with your dad, right? And him talking about the pods and all that. I'm like, dude, wow. Like, I was like, it was motivating. Mm-hmm. It really was. I mean, both of your parents listened. It was awesome. Like I said, I loved listening to both of them. And so I'm trying to, I guess, do my own thing now. And a lot of it is civilian training. But I think there's a huge need for it, like in our churches, there's a program for our churches that I'm working on right now. And, there's a lot of threats for people going to church even. I mean, it's sad. Wow. It's pathetic. And, it is. But there are a lot of churches out there looking for people who could teach them safety stuff. And I want to be that guy for our area, or anywhere, and, so that's something I'm working on right now. It's called, so my middle name is Starr. Nobody ever believed that, but it's STARR. And so it's Starr Training Solutions. And my website's not up yet, but I got my LLC, I got my tax number, so that's important, awesome. Right?
Absolutely.
And I'm starting to kind of get it going and spread the word now, so.
Absolutely. Well, I'll do what I can to, spread that out.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. A couple views I get or whatever, but that's awesome. I full support behind whatever you try to start. Just like your wife being so motivating and trying to get you to do that. I think the least people can do is, sit down with you since, your whole career is serving people. So I think, other people are more than willing to return the favor and
Well,
do
I
whatever,
appreciate
whatever they can to get your business going. Because I mean, I see great things. You're going to do great things. You always have in your whole career. You were inspiring to me growing up, seeing just how friendly you were and just how active you were in the community. I know so many more people feel the same way. So I just can't thank you enough for sitting down and having a great conversation with me.
Thank you for having me. I mean, I was totally I was stoked, man, when you told me, I was blown away, man. So
that's awesome.
Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Of course, I'll be more than happy to do it again.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it, buddy.
It was awesome.